Hey! Prior video. I have to dodge all these books on the floor. Just going through book recommendations. I forgot about the Cloud of Unknowing, Pseudo-Dionysius, the Areopagite, Origin. There's some really great material out there. There's not a lot of it. You know, the amazing thing is that the more a book is trash, the more likely it is to be reprinted, and the better a book is, the more likely it is to vanish into some sort of deep archives of a university library, never to be seen again. If it's good, it's impossible to find the book, or nearly so. Trash keeps getting... You won't ever find anything at a bookstore other than trash. It's not my opinion, it's a fact. You'll find anything. I mean, you can't even find Dante's Inferno. You can't... There's nothing in a bookstore but garbage. You want another reason why people are so dumb? Is they just keep being fed trash. Microwave burritos, trash books, on and on. Trash. Nobody understands anything. I'm going to go over Greek and Indian ideas of counterspace because, of course, nothing is known except through the modality of the knower. Someone might be standing on the bright side of a building, the illuminated side, and described a certain way. Someone's looking at the same building except they're looking at the shadow side. They're both describing the same building, but one of them have a completely different description because of their location and the time, their personality, the way they interpret things. The Greeks and Indians had the same idea of counterspace, even though counterspace, of course, is a ridiculous word. We're talking about the notions of zero, ka, or chaos, words denotating zero, but the metaphysics thereof, because especially the Western world is extremely confused. They confuse nothing with not a thing. Nothing is a qualifier of something else. You know, there's no ice in, well, actually, I take that back. There is ice on the mountain of a big, in Hawaii. There's no palm trees in Alaska. An absence of something is not reification of nothing. There's no such thing as nothingness. There is nothing and not a thing. A circle, of course, is a designator of a periphery. So we're talking about chaos, and the Greeks, the Greek term chaos, or specifically meaning cavity. It doesn't mean chaos. Current connotations of the term chaos, of course, do not exist at all. There's near infinite complexity, but chaos itself, as it is connoted in science fiction or whatever, like helter-skelter, perpetual, non-random helter-skelter. The universe not only does not work that way, but there is no such thing as that. Same is true of a shadow. A shadow is not a thing. It has no principality. A shadow is an absence of light. Same is true of emptiness. I love it when I used to debate the Buddhists for years and years, and they talk about experiencing emptiness. Like, experienced emptiness, right? Yes, I did. I went there. I experienced it. So you were in it, right? Yes, I was. So you were in it. It was an emptiness by definition. And even if that were possible, which of course descriptively it's completely impossible, you would have to know you were in it, thereby which it had to possess an attribute whereby which you could say this is emptiness. Like water has attributes. It's wet and it's runny. You know, it has attributes. Like if you close your eyes, like, oh, that's water. You got your hand in water because you could recognize the attributes. Emptiness by definition, or absolute nothingness, or chaos, it would have to have a qualifier by which you would be able to know it, but by definition it doesn't. So there's no such thing as emptiness, there's no such thing as chaos. There's all these different things that human beings conceptualize that of course don't exist at all. Getting back to Greek chaos, or in the Pali ka, denoting zero, but not absolute numerical zero from a mathematical perspective, where zero is, of course, just only a placeholder. Zero, by the way, according to the Greeks, is not a number at all. One even isn't a number. It's a principle. There's no Greek designation for number zero. It's just simply a placeholder. Of course, in metaphysics of the Vedas and the Upanishads, Advaita Vedanta, original Buddhism, on and on and on, this is the whole or the nave of the wheel through which the axle of the universe runs. The unmanifest pure potential. We're talking about counter space. We could say zero-point energy. We could say subspace. We could give it all sorts of different denotations. Mother Nature, Natura Naturans, of course, doesn't care. Since we know that there's no such thing as emptiness, and shunya, by the way, is a qualifier. This is the other thing the Buddhists absolutely have no clue about whatsoever. It's qualifier of something else. This is common methodology, both the Greek and Indian. The Greeks called it apophaticism. The Indians called it neti neti, which means not this, not that. It is a negation and a disobjectification, the methodology of returning yourself to the principle. The center of a magnet, you can actually see it. I got thousands of videos on the supercell. You see this black hole. That's not nothingness. That's the absence of light. Everywhere you see light on a ferrocell image, the magnet's placed underneath the supercell or ferrocell, you're looking at magnetism. Magnetism, of course, is the toroidal geometry of force and motion. You're looking at something that is completely absent. It is a void, but it's not a void in the sense it is nothing. It is the unmanifest pure potential. This is the actual definition of the term inertia. It is absolutely everywhere, but it has no Cartesian value. It is unmanifest pure potential. Anything that is manifest is the loss of energy or inertia, which of course manifests as a three-dimensional force vector. The manifestation or appearance, but the appearances of course are holographic and ultimately imaginary. It turns out the one thing that the New Agers got right, it's like a broken clock is right twice a day, the one thing the New Agers got right is the holographic universe paradigm. This is actually understood by Henri Poincaré. By the way, Henri Poincaré is the person from which Albert Einstein stole all his ideas. That's not my opinion, that's a fact. Henri Poincaré wrote it down, discovered it. Albert Einstein stole everything you attribute to Albert Einstein was stolen from Henri Poincaré. But there's two types of empty or nothing. Not that nothing can be qualified. Nothing, of course, is said relative to something else. Alaska is empty of palm trees. The desert is empty of water most of the time. Number one is the phenomena, which of course is a temporal bubble of phenomena, once again getting back to the holographic universe, or balloon, just as, of course, every atom. The one thing these so-called scientists, these bean-counting, materialistic, atomistic mathematicians, are not scientists in a true definition, they're mathematicians. One thing they did get right is every atom is 99.9999999% empty space. In other words, an atom is just a super huge balloon inside the center of which is a few nuclear particles. So once again, we're getting back to the holographic universe. This balloon of every atom and, of course, the entire universe. Number two is the empty or chasm from which everything comes, but which itself has no temporal or material value. Like the hole in the wheel, the hole in your eyes, your nose, your mouth, and other orifices. The center of a cyclone. I've been in the center, of course we call them hurricanes over here, been in the center of a hurricane twice in my life, and it's just peaceful, still, clear sky, the birds are chirping once again. You're just inside the eye of turmoil. It's the antithesis. Around all this force and motion is a rest, is inertia. The entire universe is like that. The center of a magnet, there is no magnetic flux. You can actually take two magnets, put them together, create one magnet. There's no magnetic flux at the middle. It's the center of the cyclone or the center of a spiral arm galaxy, for example. Centripetal, nivriti or nisbandha. We have this in the metaphysics. Nivriti means an end of a stoppage of nir. Vriti. Vriti means perturbation. That's extremely accurate. There's no such thing as physics versus metaphysics. They're both inverse sides of the same silver, or the coinage of this universe, and the same is no different if I were to use my great radio analogy talking about perturbations of a frequency. It's modulation, or the energy modulation, whereby which it is able to be tuned. So nibbana is suvimutta chitasana nibbana, the thoroughly liberated chitta means nirvana. What is nirvana or nibbana in Pali? Both the same words, nibbana, nirvana, or nibbana in Pali. It means nivriti, the subjugation or ending of perturbation. It would be saying taking the frequency, whatever that frequency is, and ending its modulation. When you end modulation, it's not a signal anymore. It can't be tuned. It is the actual definition of inertia. The modulation of any EMR, of course, is just a partial torus. It's a three-dimensional force vector, whether circular or linear polarization. People don't really have in their heads, unfortunately, I wish they did, it would make the analogy perfectly clear for them, this coaxial circuit of light, this transverse electrical magnetic circular linear polarization is just a partial toroid of a propagating longitudinal pulse perturbation that we call EMR, or light, whether that be radio or gamma radiation or X-ray. So the center of phenomena where there is no phenomena. The center of magnetic flux where there is, of course, no magnetism. Zero, of course, is just a placeholder of a radius and the marker of magnitude and force. Any number with several zeros, whether it be 2 zeros or 4 or 5 zeros, just denotes a greater centrifugal radius of phenomena, or a larger circle or sphere. More zeros are just still 1 0 and 1 0 only, a marker against the center or apex of pure potential or rest or inertia, is a measure of phenomenal actuality. If people could understand zero correctly in this idea of chaos, not current connotation of chaos where we think of chaos being helter-skelter, but an absence of rest, we're talking about modulation. And when we draw a zero, we're just talking about a circular radius, absence of that three-dimensional force vector from the center. A true zero would be drawn from the sense of metaphysics. I don't have my chalkboard in front of me. Like a spiral, you'd actually start at a point and work your way out and kind of reconnect again. So you'd actually have this three-dimensional force vector in the representation of zero. You would have to start from a point, draw it to a radius, to a circle, or an increasing circle. If we were to draw an increasing circle and around a circle and again where it never meets, we're just saying like going from 10 to 100 to 1,000 to 100,000 to a million. We have an increasing radius. We have increasing actuality, which is a loss of energy or inertia, i.e. potential, i.e. rest. I kind of don't like the word counter space, but there's not another perfect, we could say the agathon, the absolute, we could say the one, there's a lot of different things we say. 0 point energy, we could say rest. This idea of chaos or kar or zero is just a cavity, a representational of manifestation of the loss of energy or inertia from a non-Cartesian pure potential point, but it is not a point at all. It has no Cartesian value or location in space. Space is just the after effect of a divergent magnetic field. That's all space is, the air inside of a balloon. The balloon represents the three-dimensional force vector. Of course, you have to expend energy to blow up that balloon, and that empty space, of course, is just carbon dioxide in the balloon, but we can't take the analogy that far. It's just the negative image of pure potential is this is space itself. It is the flip side of loss of energy or inertia. I mean, we say space is endless. In the ancient Pali and Sanskrit is ananta, literally without end. But something that is without end, like space, volume, and magnitude. And of course, we see across the chasm of space using the James Webb Telescope and these other telescopes, we see like the smallest little dot in the sky magnified however many times James Webb Telescope or Hubble is capable. We see thousands and thousands of galaxies. So it's incredibly distant. We can basically say it is without end, but that's just the negative image of true pure potential. Human beings chase after all these phenomena and things, and stuff and houses and money and cars and whatnot, and it doesn't bring us happiness. It's like a lead anchor around our neck. This is the reason why metaphysics is not to make somebody happy, but make them understand the nature of reality and what lies underneath the substrate of reality, and to realize all these things that we think are real are ultimately unreal. Once again, back to the holographic paradigm. But ideas of zero or emptiness is completely misconstrued today. There's no such thing as nothingness. Nothing is not to be confused with not a thing. There's no such thing as emptiness. Emptiness is a completely unreal concept. Something is empty of something else. Yes? The big zero of Mother Nature is three-dimensional zero, and a three-dimensional zero is the volume of a torus. Torus is the literal centrifugal force and motion vector of the loss of inertia. There is the big zero. And there's a zero we draw on a piece of paper, which is the line with a pencil or pen on a piece of paper, but the true zero of nature is a torus, is the magnetic torus of force and motion. All atoms, as the scientists have accurately, one of the few things they get right, is basically nothing. An atom, by the way, is just a super powerful electrostatic dynamo. The volume of that atom is not nothingness, it is energy. It is a little turbine, an atom-sized turbine of energy. And of course those fundamental particles are just compounded ultra-high energy light, specifically a spherical frequency. A spherical frequency essentially has no frequency. But anything that partakes of volume, because all atoms, of course, have a diameter measured in picometers, they suffer geomagnetic precession, and since it has a mass, even though it's incredibly small, they suffer ultimate destruction. Every ancient metaphysician from both Buddhist and Greek and whatnot said, well, atoms last an perdurable eternity, endless gazillion times longer than a human life. They're still destined to perish. These zero-time particles don't really partake of time at the nucleus. They do at the radius due to geomagnetic precession, but they ultimately must fail. That's the lag due to the vector of magnetism, because magnetism brings everything to destruction. Magnetism manifests mass and magnitude and volume, and anything that partakes of mass and magnitude partakes of time, and anything that partakes of time must necessitatively partake of destruction. But Western nihilistic and atomistic and atheistic ideas of nothingness and chaos and zero, they're all upside down and backwards. Everything we think is real is, of course, unreal, and the things that we think are unreal are the only things that are actually real. Real in the absolutist sense. Like, what is real? People think only something is real if you could hold it, smell it, taste it, touch it, or stick it underneath the microscope. What I have in my hand is a ball of lead, but I mean, this is ultimately unreality. It doesn't exist. This universe, of course, is mirage. It is holographic. Ultimate substrate is underneath that at rest or inertia. It has no Cartesian value. It doesn't partake of time, doesn't partake of mass, doesn't partake of magnitude. So this ideas of chaos and zero are complete misnomers. There is a huge distinction between nothing and not a thing. There's no such thing as emptiness, no such thing as chaos, and there's different types of concepts of emptiness. The emptiness that is, of course, phenomena, this temporal bubble, and then, of course, there's the emptiness of the chasm from which all things must manifest, like the orifices, all the black spots on our face and nose and all over our body, these inertial points where all energy is lost and then manifests as fantastical phenomena. But you can't look at phenomena and then postulate nothingness, because these are concepts that don't exist in nature. Unmanifest is not the same thing as nothing. People really do confuse not a thing with nothing. There's nothing there. They'll say, what nothing are you talking about? You say, it's empty of this, this, and this, and this. But these are phenomena. These are the emptiness. Human beings really do, just as the ancients said, have everything upside down and backwards. The thing we think are empty are actually full. They're the locus of liberation. They're the locus of wisdom. Because wisdom is just a BS term for self-proximity. Yeah, that's all wisdom is. Wisdom is that which seeks itself. Liberation, of course, is the fulfillment of wisdom, which is the culmination of absolute self-proximity. Absolute self-proximity is the inversion of modulation. Modulation is the perturbation of an ignorant individual who identifies with the stuff in the mirror. All that stuff is emptiness. It is empty of true self. Yeah. The one thing people don't realize is everything they think is real is unreal, and everything they think is unreal is the only actual, ultimate real. And we need to distinguish empty versus empty of. There's no such thing as emptiness. There's no such thing as chaos. There's no such thing as nothingness. These conceptual reifications are completely foreign phantasms from the perspective of Mother Nature, as they must be necessitatively. There's a great word that is untranslatable. The closest approximation in English is necessitated. It doesn't mean necessitated, the ancient Greek word ananke. It means it can't exist any other way. In other words, it must be this way. It's kind of a fancy way of saying necessity, or necessitated existence, or necessitated ultimate existence, i.e. transcendent to phenomenality. There's a pile of ancient Pali and Greek words that are untranslatable, like logos, sama, dhamma, iristos, dias, tolma, nanke, on and on and on. English, we got it bad. We think things that are words point to concepts which no one's ever seen. No one can point to emptiness. There's emptiness. Read it. Look at it. There's no such thing as emptiness. Even the word shadow and wave, yeah, and force of what, by what, and what. These are the words, these silly little concepts used by these so-called scientists. Things that don't actually exist. Force, waves, emptiness. These don't exist in nature's reality. They don't exist at all. No such thing as force and waves and emptiness and zero. Zero is a placeholder. To even draw a zero requires energy. It goes from the calories of my body through the nerves in my hand and the will of my mind and spirit to go on a chalkboard, zero. Look at that, that's nothingness. It's like, no, it's not. You just drew a big bubble around an unmanifest center where it started, because when you start at zero, you had to start at a point. To make a true zero from the standpoint of metaphysics, you had to start in the center and go outwards and then draw a zero. That's how a metaphysical zero would be written. Even then, it's only two-dimensional. Remember, Mother Nature's zero is a torus. Let me repeat that one more time before I end this video. Mother Nature's zero is a torus. If you understand that, you'll have an aha moment. Aha! Mother Nature is a simple chick. Hairy armpits, muddy feet, grass skirt, hemp skirt probably. Kind of like my hemp robe here. Yeah. I hope you like this video. If you ever want to contact me, and I don't know why everybody keeps asking where my email's at. It's in the description below of every video. I hope you have a lovely weekend. Yeah? It's nice talking to you all. Yeah? Peace out, Girl Scout. Lux Veritas.